Okay, if you watched the last video, you will have seen that we found this little map here. That was the start of injection choice map, so it was map choice. And one of the things I said about that map choice was that we noticed that this last number here was 9, and it matched up with this number over here, which turned out to be 90 degrees. And so it seemed likely that most of the time, as soon as the engine was up to temperature, this was the map that the engine would be running on. In other words, it would be running on 9, which is this one here. And I did mention that perhaps it would make sense to consider only tuning this map if you were tuning an engine, because that way you wouldn't have the tune operating at temperatures when the engine wasn't completely warmed up. Now, that wasn't a completely daft comment from me, because if we go back to the 2D view, there we are, there's the last start of injection map, there's the little map that we just found for the choice. If we run forwards a little bit, we may well find another map. It's often 11 by 14. There it is. Winols often finds this one. Sometimes it doesn't, but it often does find this one. So I'm going to double click to open that map. And the reason why I'm going to double click to open that map is I'm going to have a look at what's going on in here. Now, Winols has spotted a lot of things straight away. It's decided by the looks of things that this is revs per minute. Looks that way, doesn't it? It looks like it's decided that that is revs per minute. So let's just put in there while we're here, engine speed and revs per minute. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, because we can always change it later. So we'll just OK that for a moment. Now, what's it done up here? It's decided that this is temperature. Now, does the range seem sensible? Well, -20, -15, -10, or ending around about 79. Well, the last map that we looked at, the limiting map, ended at 90, but that doesn't seem too bad. So let's go and have a look at that. Temperature, degrees C, 1 degree of precision, 0.1, -273.1. Well, all the figures stack up. They all make sense. So let's accept that for now then. So okay, so we've got revs per minute and temperature, and then we've got this in the middle. Now, those figures, if we were to go back, I'll put that there for a minute. I'll go back to text view. Let me just get rid of that out of the way by pressing delete. If I go back, there's our last start of injection map. Now let's look at those figures, 297327. If you look at all of these numbers, and perhaps some of these up here, fairly similar to these. So that does make you wonder, are we looking at yet another map to do with something about timing of injection or duration of injection or something like that, or start of injection? So are we looking at something like that? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click down the side here. I've done it several times along the bottom when I've been moving things. I'm just going to do that here again, and so I'm going to move back to where that map was. So in other words, there's the map. Oh, move this up. Right, let's put it there then, shall we? Right, so there's the map. So that's where we found the map in the file. That's the map. There's the axes for it. Look, you can see 14. So there's the different axes for the bits and pieces for that. There's 11, and there's the information for 11. And here they are displayed on this map. So okay, so we've got that. So what we're really down to is, what is this? So let's take a guess that it's crankshaft rotation. Oh, it'd be handy if I could spell, wouldn't it? So we'll take a guess that it's crankshaft rotation. And so I'll just put CR in there, because I can't put a degree sign without a lot of mucking about. Now, we used a precision of 2 last time we did this, and we needed a factor in there. Now, with a bit of luck, by now you're waking up in the middle of the night and you've still got this number stuck in your head if you've been doing lots of these files. So we want 0.023437. Now that should give us a number, but not just any old number, because let's just close that for now and get rid of it. Now we've got a number. Now this number looks too big. Think back to what we said before. This number looks too big. And why does it look too big? Because we talked about a duration of 30 degrees. We wouldn't really want to start injecting the start of injection of 50 or 60, because that would give us 30 degrees of duration, and then we'd still have 30 degrees to wait for top dead center. It simply wouldn't make any sense. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open that one up again, and I'm going to take a guess that this wants minus 78 put in front of it, and then I'm going to close that down again. And if you remember what I said in the previous videos, if we assume that minus 27 is after top dead center, then we can also assume that it's 27 before top dead center. So I'm going to assume that that is 27 degrees before top dead center. I might be wrong on these things, but that's what I'm going to assume. Now we know that up around about this point we would be injecting something like 30 degrees worth of fuel. So 30 degrees worth of fuel would be injected there. So if we injected it and we started at about 27, we'd finish 3-4 degrees after top dead center, which would put us fairly close to top dead center, which is the sort of design point that lots of people would have in their mind when they were designing these engines. So okay, now the only other thing we need to look at is the temperature. It looks like we've got this magic figure of 79 degrees. So this map is doing something. It's saying something about when start of injection can occur at a number of revs and different temperatures. And what it's probably doing is it's limiting start of injection. In other words, the ECU looks up on the chart for start of injection to see which map it needs, and then decides which start of injection map to use, then decides which figures it's going to use, and then maybe it just has a quick check on here to make sure that the temperature and the figures on here agree that the figures in that map are allowable. So maybe these maps just limit the figures on this map, just limit it, just to stop things getting a little too silly at the wrong times. And that would explain the temperatures, because the most harmful thing for your engine, or anyone's engine really, is going to be trying to rev and rev and rev when the engine is still quite cold and the oil isn't circulating properly. So maybe that's what this is all about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to give this a name, and I'm going to call this the start of injection limiting map, and I'm going to assume that this map, it does simply that. It limits start of injection from being a little bit too out of hand, just like I suggested that you might like to limit injection on a colder engine if you tune a map. So it looks like the designers have actually taken into account that for you in a sense, because if you made a ridiculous change to one of the start of injection maps when the engine was reasonably cold, if you hadn't changed this would prevent a daft change from actually taking place. I mean, the change would take place, but the ECU wouldn't pass it on to the injectors. In other words, it would protect the injectors. Of course, this is now also telling you something, that if you want to change start of injection maps, you are going to need to have a look at this one as well, because there is not much point in making changes to a start of injection map over here but leaving the limiters exactly the same, so that there is a limitation all the time. Now this, presumably the limitation stops at about 80 degrees, so presumably once you're on map 9 this doesn't worry anyway. So if you hadn't changed 0 to 8, then you wouldn't need to worry about this limiter, because this limiter will carry on limiting 0 to 8 just as it always has done. So if you just made your changes to 9, the limiter, presumably because of the 10 degree lower temperature, is not going to have an effect on your changes to map 9, and so you will actually get real changes. In a way that's a warning, isn't it? Because if you make daft changes here, there isn't a little safety valve over here to stop you and protect you, so you will have to bear that in mind. Right, I'm going to close this down then, and I'll stop there.